So, yesterday, as many of us know, was the very first hearing in what is essentially being known as the Artist versus AI lawsuit. And the crux of this hearing was essentially to address a motion to dismiss that was put forth by the defendants. In this case, it's Midjourney, Stability AI, and DeviantArt. Now, I was able to get a seat in the, well, it's a figurative seat spot in the Zoom call where you could actually watch the hearing. The long and the short of it was this: the judge essentially felt that some of the arguments that were put forward by the plaintiffs needed some clarification. It's not necessarily bad because you have to think about it like this is all new. We are in uncharted territory. There's not a lot of legal precedent that applies to some of this. Now, the main crux of what the defendants wanted thrown out, none of them got up there and said, take the whole thing and chuck it out. They were addressing specific aspects of the complaint, specifically some of the copyright infringement complaints, where if you apply the thinking that, well, it's only copyright infringement if the output that comes from the generator looks more or less indistinguishable from the work of the artist, that gets a little tricky because I think a lot of us understand that this is a lot more complex than this. So what essentially came down to was the jug. What it essentially came down to was the judge issued a leave to revise. Basically said, okay, guys, go back, work on your complaint a little bit, and then come back and we're going to revisit it. Now, there's a lot of aspects to the complaint. It's not just copyright infringement. And again, I can't stress this enough. We're in uncharted territory here, right? There's no precedent, as I literally just said. And it's very complicated. But I think there is a lot of pressure and a lot of eyes looking at this court case because this is essentially going to be the first one, and it could potentially establish precedent. Now, here's one thing that kind of had me a little scratch in my head, because when I hear terms like class action lawsuit, right? If any of us watched Better Call Saul, it's like a ton of people, right? Your normal class action lawsuit isn't three people. Now, you might be going, well, yeah, well, what's up with that? Why isn't there thousands of people? Why isn't every artist who has their work fed into this machine? Or people like the photographer who took the photo of the Afghan girl, why isn't that person in there? Why isn't Greg Rakowski in there? Well, he's not a U.S. citizen. I'm sure that has an effect on him being able to join it. But these things don't start out that way. You don't go to an initial hearing or in the beginning and say, we've got 1,000 defendants. They can grow. So while it seems like a setback, and in certain circles, there might be some AI people who are already preemptively celebrating, I just want to issue some caution about two things. One, don't get discouraged. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it's really just beginning. That's A. Part B is that there's so many other lawsuits, right? This issue isn't hanging entirely on the outcome of this one lawsuit. There is, I think, if you want to count, and this is a crazy number I'm going to throw at you, if you want to count AI products that are being sued, right? So these are like smaller companies, products that are kind of showing bias in, like, housing applications, things like that. There's literally hundreds of lawsuits against AI products. But in terms of potentially major lawsuits against the big AI companies, I'm talking about Stability, Midjourney, Microsoft, OpenAI. I've got it up to about 15 lawsuits that are being filed against these major players. So don't get discouraged. Don't get down. We're going to have to see what the law firm handling this, the Sevieri law firm, comes back with. But they've been given an opportunity. And again, this is not an easy task. I mean, the black box nature of these models does tend to obfuscate their ability to really get in the nuts and bolts of this. And again, there is no precedent that really applies, but I do also want to just hang a lantern on this one thing. And this has been something that I've been saying and that I've used in my debates and my very good natured conversations with AI proponents, is that if you look at, previous and established law, fair use law, which is the one that generally comes into play, right? It's like, oh, it's transformative, it's this, it's that, it's fair use. Well, if you look at the fourth tenet of fair use law, it cannot compete with the person who is the copyright holder or the creator of that work and basically take market value away from them. And I think that very much comes into play. So again, it's a very complex complaint. You're going to have to forgive me. It's been a long time since I've read it. There's a lot of useless information in here that I just absolutely refuse to delete. So I'm going to have to go back and reread this. So we're going to come back to this, but we will get a date on when the next hearing is going to be. We will find out when they have resubmitted their new and revised complaint to the court, and we will cover it then. Now, don't get discouraged. Don't really acknowledge some of the articles that you might see out there that are saying, oh, the judge, I've read a few that said the judge was inclined to dismiss the case. That's not actually accurate. There are multiple aspects to the complaint, and dismissing one aspect of the complaint does not make the case go away. So this is all very TBD and kind of, I don't want to say put on hold, because the law firm really has to work really hard right now. They've got to revise their complaint. They need to get a lot of different ducks in a row. They need to get tech experts involved. They need to just look at what is provable, what is not. And look, again, I know I keep saying precedent. It's unfortunate that that is how the legal system works, right? They rely on precedent, and cases that establish new precedent are few and far between. And actually, you got to think about it. It puts a massive, I don't know if burden is the right word. It puts a massive onus on the judge in this case to really essentially establish a governing policy, which is like psychotic if you think about it. Like, okay, here I am, I'm a judge. And now basically I'm looking at new information that is essentially unreliant on something that came before it. I've got to basically trailblaze a new basically policy or way of thinking or something, framework that the courts are going to use going forward. That's got to be a crazy feeling. So I'm really hoping that we have a good outcome here. But at the end of the day, and I probably could have just made this video like 15 seconds. Motion to dismiss, not successful. Leave to revise is what has happened, and we are going to see what has happened. I will definitely keep you guys updated. I am going to be very focused in on all of these cases, and I am sorry that I was unable to actually show you footage of this. Apparently, it's extremely illegal to either record, take screenshots, even audio recording is strictly forbidden, which is a little sad. I would not have minded this being publicly broadcast in some way. Anyway, that's it for today. I wish you all very good luck in the wars to come, and I'll talk to you later.